All right, what is going on, ladies and gents? In this video, we're going to be talking about everybody's favorite topic when it comes to selling insurance, and that is underwriting, right? So what we're really going to be kind of breaking down here is like the frameworks or the thought process that you guys really need to have when it comes to underwriting, because underwriting is one of those skills where a lot of people just kind of look over it, right? They don't really know what's going on, and they'll just write people left and right. Some people will even like lie on applications. Like the craziest stuff out there happens. But if you really learn this and master this, right, it's going to allow you to find people the best possible rate for the best possible price on insurance. Find them day one insurance when other people can't. And it's also going to save you a lot of time on declined applications, right? Because what most people do is it's basically called running the gauntlet. So they'll load up a client. They have 5 insurance companies in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they'll just try to get them approved on each individual company until something sticks. And so that process takes hours. Whereas we like to take more of like a sniper rifle approach, where we just want to hit the first company. And have like the first company that we pick and the first company we apply for be the correct company for that person, right? So without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this, right? And I want to preface this a little bit and say like the best way to learn underwriting is by doing and then learning it by doing, right? This training is not going to make you a master at underwriting. I hate to break it to you. But what it is going to do is show you how to think about this so that you guys like are able to save hours and hours on the phone. Because when you approach underwriting with the thought processes that I'm about to give you, it's going to allow you to outcompete like 99% of agents. So again, do not expect to learn everything from this training. Like underwriting is one of those things where it's constantly changing. So insurance companies are changing their requirements. Different carriers will accept different things. They're always changing their plans. You'll find out about a different health condition every day. Like the human body is pretty complicated. So don't expect to learn everything from this training. The purpose of this training, again, is to give you the basic frameworks you need to know. And it's going to save you guys hours on the phone when you guys master the skill. So what you guys will realize is over time, you're going to actually pick up so much knowledge just from doing this multiple times over and over and over and over and over on a day-to-day basis, that you'll learn so much about like medicine and health conditions that like your knowledge on that will be like comparable to a doctor, right? Like if you guys have ever talked to Julian and you hear the way he talks about like different medicines, like he knows how to spell every single medicine and how to, what each medicine is for. And I want to like really, really hit this home. You guys should not expect to be there. That comes with time, and you don't need that, but it comes with time, right? So again, the goal with underwriting is we don't need to memorize, hundreds of medications and health conditions and know what this is or what that is. We just need to learn the strategy and understand how the game is played so that we can be efficient, right? So let's go ahead and jump into it. What game are we actually playing? So I like to compare underwriting. It's kind of like we're playing like the health condition game of Clue, which if you guys have ever played the game of Clue, basically, there's like these 7 different characters or whatever, and you're in these different rooms, and then you have like different weapons, and there's essentially like somebody commits a murder at the beginning of the game, and you go around and take turns, and you ask different questions to try to gather a hypothesis or an accusation of who did it or who killed the person, right? And so essentially that's kind of what we're doing whenever we're asking underwriting questions, right? We're saying, hey, have you ever had cancer, heart attack, or stroke? Okay, we're taking that information down. And then we ask a follow-up question. Hey, have you ever had, do you have diabetes? Okay, is your diabetes ever been out of like uncontrolled or anything like that? And so we're going through, we're asking all these questions, we're inputting it in, and then basically at the end, we're going to make an accusation, or in this case, we're just going to pick the best company for our client, right? And this whole process, the same way it is with Clue, it's all a process of elimination. So what we're doing is as we're finding out different pieces of information, we're playing a game of knockout, and we're just disqualifying them from certain carriers until we're only left with a few options. And then I'm going to show you guys how to actually pick from those options later on in this training. So again, each question that we ask, we're revealing more information about our prospect and their health. And the way I want you guys to kind of think about this is like you are a detective over the phone. If you were seeing these people in person, you would have a lot more clues because you could see the medications and different things, but you're doing this all over the phone. So we have to be really good detectives, right? So if they give us like a vague or an uncertain answer, we need to dig a little deeper and expand upon that so we can have concrete information to base our decisions off of, right? Side note, guys, definitely take notes on this. Write these things down, especially the big frameworks and ideas I talk about, and like start implementing these into your day-to-day of underwriting, because this is what's going to be like a big needle mover for you, right? So again, anytime we get a vague or an uncertain answer, we need to expand upon that to get concrete information. So an example, if our client is like, yeah, I think I might have like a little bit of COPD, right? We need to figure out like what the hell is a little bit of COPD. You either do have COPD or you don't, right? So when you say you have a little bit of COPD, did your doctor like diagnose you with it, or was it asthma, or like what did they tell you, right? If they say they have a little bit of COPD, they usually have COPD, right? Another example, I think my doctor said I had one of those, but I don't even know if they put it in my records. If their doctor said that they had one of those, let's assume they put it in the records, right? Oftentimes people will say this with like a stroke or a mini stroke. Yeah, I think I had like a heart attack, but I'm not sure if my doctor put it in my records. Their doctor put it in the records. So we're looking for hidden clues, right? If we notice like a string of medications that are oftentimes linked to heart failure, we should ask them like, hey, have you ever had heart failure, right? We're connecting the dots, essentially. We're putting a puzzle together, and we're fitting different pieces with each other, right? Assumption is public enemy number one. So we never want to assume things about their health. If they're like, oh yeah, I have 7 medications and we only get 6, we need to find out what that other one is, because oftentimes the way it usually just ends up working out is that one medication that they didn't tell you is the one that gets them DQ'd from the company you were going to go with. So, we always need to ask, we always need to get all of the information, and we never, ever, ever assume. We don't assume that they're healthy. We don't assume the best case. We don't assume the worst case. We simply just ask. And the way to ask these questions is you want to maintain a childlike curiosity. So when I'm asking these questions, I'm not going to be accusatory, even though I know I said like we're a detective. Like, we're not interrogating our clients, right? And we don't want it to feel like an interrogation, because if you think about it from your client's perspective, they're jumping on the phone with a stranger who's asking them like everything there is to know about their health. So when we ask these questions, we need to do it like we're genuinely curious and approach it from the mindset of we're trying to help, right? So, okay, got it. And I know you mentioned that you had 7 medications. To be honest with you, I only have like 6 down here. What was that 7th medication, just so I can figure out which company is going to give you the best options, right? We're always going to have like a childlike curiosity, and we're always approaching this from the angle of like, how can we help them? Not like, give me all of your meds and all of your personal health history for the last 40 years. So that is the whole, that's the health condition game of Clue. That's that whole framework. Some things to look out for. These are just like some helpful things that you'll see. Oftentimes, whenever you have 3 or more medications for one health condition, it's a flag for something more serious. So like an example would be if they have 3 or more medications for diabetes, this is usually an indicator that they've had diabetes with complications, like for example, neuropathy or nephropathy. I don't even know how to say it, but it's basically kidney damage is the other one, right? So if they have like all of these different medications for diabetes, that usually is an indicator that something else is wrong. If they have 3 or more high blood pressure medications, it's usually an indication of heart issues or AFib. If they have 3 or more medications for like allergies or asthma or inhalers, usually they're going to have something more serious like COPD, right? So pay attention to that. Usually like 3 is this number where you start to, you need to ask a little more questions. Look out for power of attorneys, right? So if somebody has a power of attorney, we're going to want to find this out usually in the underwriting. And a lot of times this is like linked to if they take memory medications or they have dementia or something like that. A lot of times they'll have a power of attorney. But if they have a power of attorney, which usually, they'll mention it like, my daughter or my son or my, whoever, the power of attorney basically has power of attorney, so they have the ability to sign for this person. So if they have a POA, is what we usually call it, the POA has to be present to complete the application. So look out for signs of this, which would be like dementia or them continually mentioning like their kid or something like that. Look out for hospitalizations. A lot of times people just don't mention this. If they just went to the hospital, recently, these are things we need to know about. And we ask a question about this, but you really want to dig deep on that. If they can't spell a medication, right, you're going to want to ask them to grab the pill bottle, right? Because there's all these crazy medications, and a lot of times, people don't speak the clearest over the phone, or you're having connection issues. Like, we don't want to just try and fit pieces together. Let's be 100% sure. So if they're saying like, blah, 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 right? Like, let's just have them grab the pill bottle, spell it out, and let's type it in. And again, don't ever skip medications. So let's talk about the process of elimination when we're on the phone. And I'm going to give you guys like an example that will kind of demonstrate how this works. So when we're underwriting, it's a process of elimination. So each question that we ask is going to limit the carrier options further and further and further until we're only left with a few options. And again, later in this video, I'm going to show you guys how to pick between those options. So our goal with each question that we ask is to knock out certain companies so we know exactly who to pick. We're always looking for a day one company, preferably, right? That's what we're optimizing for. But our goal is just to limit the options as much as possible with the health questions. So we're not trying to find out what they qualify for necessarily. We're more so trying to find out what they don't qualify for, and then we're going to pick from what's left. So an example that I like to use is like, imagine we have like 15 different types of fruit in a bowl, right? And basically our goal is we need to find the perfect piece of fruit for our client. And we have to find out like which fruit are they not allergic to, right? So here's our fruit. We got an apple, we got a watermelon, grapes, banana, strawberry, cherry, raspberry, pineapple, blueberry, orange, lemon, kiwi, pear, mango, and lime, right? So, let's say we're playing this game of knockout and, first thing our client's like, hey, I only want to look at red fruit, right? So we've just knocked out most of our options. We can only look at the red fruit now. So now we have an apple, a watermelon, a strawberry, cherry, and raspberries, right? So now we have limited options. And then we go, okay, well, we can only look at berries because, a different health question pops up. So now we only have raspberry and strawberry. And then if they say, hey, we're only going to look at fruits that are commonly used in ice cream, now we're just left with a strawberry. So essentially we've narrowed down all of our options and filtered them out. So, we had 15 options, then we had 5, then we had 2, and then we were left with 1, right? And so underwriting is basically the exact same way. So you're asking your clients these different questions that are going to filter down your options until we find the strawberry or whatever carrier option or fruit or whatever, clue, whatever example is, makes the most sense for you guys. That's essentially what we're doing. We're playing knockout. And every time we ask those questions, we're just left with a few options left, right? So is there ever a time where we can stop asking health questions, right? When can we stop asking health questions? When are we like good to go? We can just run with it. So one thing that you guys are going to need to be super habitual about, and I want you to write this down on whatever you're taking notes on and like circle it, stab it with a Sharpie, underline it, highlight it, tattoo it on your, on your left wrist, whatever you have to do, is every time that you input something into toolkits, you need to click get quote, right? And so what this does is, let me actually pull this up, app.toolkits. Here we go. So what this does is every time that I click get quote, it's going to refresh my options, right? So let's say, I'm looking here and we got 25,000 in coverage. There's no health conditions. Now, all of a sudden, let's say I add COPD, right? Date of last treatment was today. We got diagnosed 5 years ago, let's say. I'm just going to click stuff here to get through that. So it's still showing that we have all of these different options. We need to click get quote. And now all of a sudden you can see the prices went up and we have more limited options, right? And so the reason we click get quote is to have an idea of what's left. So they said, boom, I got COPD. Okay, here's what's left, right? Now let's say they say, you know, I had a heart attack last year. That's the only heart attack I've had. Get quote, scroll down. Now we have even less options, right? Now what if they say that they had, you know, cancer? They had cancer, blood cancer last year. And they got diagnosed in 2022. Now we only have these 3 options, right? Like we're continually getting more limited and more limited and more limited. So when do we know when to stop, right? So we are only going to stop asking questions if we're just left with guaranteed issue options, right? So usually, like right now, the only guaranteed issue options we have are Corebridge, which is AIG, and Great Western. So if we put in a health condition, right? Like let's say, for example, I asked them about if they smoke. I asked them, you know, about cancer, and they say, yeah, I have cancer right now. Current cancer. No matter what cancer it is, it's not really going to matter. Right? This isn't going to matter. Now I only have 2 options. So if they're both guaranteed issue, I don't have to ask any other health questions because I already know they have current cancer. It's going to be one of these 2 options, and we're just going to pick the cheaper one, which in this case is Great Western, right? So that is how I know when to stop, is when I have only guaranteed issue. And so the reason that we click get quote every time is because what I don't want you guys to do is you ask this current cancer question, right? You ask about cancer, right? Like let's pull up the script. We'll go to health questions. You ask about cancer, heart attack, or stroke. They tell you they have cancer, and then you go through and ask all of the remaining questions. You're going to get all of the medications. You just added like an extra 20 or 30 minutes to what could be a 2-3 minute interaction, right? So that's why we always click get quote, and we check if we only have guaranteed issue options left. And if we do, we can stop asking questions and move on. So let's look at another example, right? So they said, you know, if they have current cancer, we only have these 2 options. We would go with Great Western because it's like $15 cheaper here. Now, let's look at a different example, right? Let's say the client says they have diabetic neuropathy. We put that in and we click and get quote. And now we only have 2 day 1 options, right? So we have Royal Neighbors and we have Transamerica. Do we need to keep asking health questions? Yes or no? The answer is an emphatic yes, right? Because we have diabetes right here. They have diabetes with neuropathy. What if they are also overweight? Or what if they have a pending surgery coming up? Or what if they have a felony? Or what if, you know, they they have heart failure or something, we haven't found out about it. Like we need to ask questions. We need to go through the whole thing unless after we click get quote, we only have guaranteed issue carriers. That's the only time when we stop asking the health questions, right? But that will happen oftentimes, and that'll save you guys a ton of time, right? So another thing too is a lot of times people will have, this is a separate point from knowing when to stop asking questions. A lot of times, like you'll talk to people that have been declined for coverage in the past, right? This is why we always ask about this. So if they tell you they've been declined for coverage in the past during the discovery phase, we want to loop this back in as we're going through the health questions, right? So if they've been declined, we need to figure out like who have they been declined for and why did they decline them, right? Because if they were declined for a carrier that has like more liberal underwriting, like for example, SBLI, the chances that they're going to get approved for Mutual of Omaha are also like very low because usually SBLI is easier to get approved for than Mutual. Or if they got declined for Transamerica, we know that they're probably not going to get approved for Mutual of Omaha, right? And so we can piece these different clues together. This is why I'm saying it's so important to like pay attention, take notes, and piece these clues together. Is like when you find a piece of information, use it to your advantage because it usually is a clue. So that's past declines. You definitely want to pay attention to that. The next thing we're going to talk about is starting conservative and then expanding out and going more liberal. So basically, whenever we're underwriting, we want to play it conservative in the beginning, right? And I'll show you guys what exactly that means, because you may be like, why are we making a political reference talking about underwriting? Don't worry, guys. It'll all make sense in a second. But basically, this is, this whole process is going to allow us to save ourselves time and save the client time and avoid unnecessary declines. So basically what we're doing is we're starting off and we're trying to narrow down the options as much as possible. And then if our options are too narrow, now we can start expanding a little bit more and then expanding a little bit more to include more options. So let me show you guys how this works. So let's look at an example. So the client says that they had a heart attack about 1 to 2 years ago. And these are real situations. This happens all the time. They had a heart attack about 1 to 2 years ago and they aren't sure on when it was. We're going to assume that it was the worst case scenario. It was more recent, right? We're going to assume that they did have the heart attack a year ago. We're going to put it in as a year. And the reason why is because the year, if they had it 1 year ago, that is going to limit our options more. So if we put in heart attack 1 year ago, now we're only left with Transamerica, which is our only day one option. Anything that's graded or 2-year wait is going to have this I right here. So our only day one option is Transamerica now. So then when we're done underwriting, if Transamerica is still our only option, we can clarify and get more concrete info. So we can ask them to go and check their records or, kind of dig a little deeper to find out when that heart attack actually was. And so let's say after we circle back and we dig deeper, they confirm to us, hey, the heart attack was actually over 2 years ago. So now instead of only having Transamerica, right, we also will have SBLI, Mutual of Omaha, and Royal Neighbors. All of these other options now popped up that we clarified on the heart attack and said it was 2 years ago instead of 1. But we always want to start saying worst case scenario if they give us vague options, it was about 1 to 2 years ago. Let's assume it was 1 if they're not sure. And then after we're done with all the other health questions, we can circle back and we can say, okay, why are these other options showing up as graded or 2-year wait? Why is that? Now we can circle back and go, okay, the reason why is because of the heart attack within 2 years. And then if we clarify and find out the heart attack was actually 2 years ago, we open up all of these other options, right? So some things to look at, like troubleshooting, if you're only having guaranteed issue options, you can read the notes in toolkits that explain why they're being declined. So what this actually looks like is when I scroll down here, I can see each company and why they would get declined. So Transamerica, if they were ever treated for current cancer, so if they have current cancer, it's a decline. American Amicable, if they're treated for current cancer, decline. Mutual of Omaha, current cancer, decline. Everyone is current cancer, decline, right? So that is essentially how that works, is it'll show you why they're being declined. So, whoops, that's the script. So you guys can check the notes that will show why they're being declined. And then oftentimes changing the timeline. So for example, I'll go back to the heart attack example. So we'll go heart attack. If this heart attack was over 2 years ago or was last year, only Transamerica is the only day one option, right? But if the heart attack is 2 years ago, our options open up, right? So let's go back to 1 year and let me show you guys where you would find the notes. So look, 2013. No, get quote. So I can see here, why is Great Western graded? Well, it's saying if heart attack within 2 years graded. If heart attack within 2 years, return a premium, which is just graded. Right? Mutual of Omaha, if heart attack between 1 and 2 years ago, graded. Real Neighbors, within 2 years, graded. If ever heart attack for AMAM Family Choice, decline. SBLI within 2 years, graded. So now I can go, hey, I know you said that you had that heart attack 1 to 2 years ago. Can you get me like an exact like timeline on when that was? Oh, it was actually in October of, or let's say it was, January of 2022. Okay, and that was the only heart attack you ever had. Boom, SBLI now comes up as our other option. So that's essentially how that works, is going back and like clarifying the decline reasons. Same thing with medications. If you change like the first date that it was filled or the date listed for like whenever they were last treated, this will also like oftentimes change what is an option for you. So let's look at summarizing, repeating. This is a super important practice to do. After you guys ask all of the health questions, you must repeat back to the client everything that they told you and then confirm it, right? So if I have, a bunch of these health conditions, I'll just say heart attack just for the sake of example. So I'm going to confirm, okay, got it. And so everything I got here down here for you was the heart attack in 2022 in around January. And you haven't had like any other heart attacks since then. That's the only heart attack that you've ever had. And that's everything that's going on with you. There's nothing else that would pop up in your medical records. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Perfect. So I'm just reconfirming with them. Like I'm reading out everything that we have that's already listed down to make sure that there's nothing else we need to add or change. And then I'm confirming it with them and asking if there's anything else. And you do this every single time that you're finished with underwriting. Because what happens is oftentimes they're going to forget to tell you something. And then whenever you like say that, they're either going to correct you or they're going to tell you something that they completely missed. And that one thing, just doing this habit over and over again, could save you guys hours over the course of like 1 week. So just summarize everything they say and repeat it back to them after they're finished. So perfect. Now let's talk about how we're actually going to pick which company to go with. Let me get a sip of my water. I bought this gallon jug the other day. I'll show you guys. It's like comically big. So I never have to refill up a water bottle ever. I just fill it up at the beginning of the day, and I got all the water that I could possibly need. So let's talk about picking the best company, right? So basically, whenever we pick a company, we use a 3-tiered system to determine which company is going to be the best fit for our client. So basically, the way this works is the items at the top of the list are going to take priority over the ones at the bottom. So here's our 3-tiered list. The first thing that we're always going to look for is trying to get the client day one, right? Then we're going to look for price if it's more than a $7 difference. I'll explain that in a minute. And then we're going to look at the preferred company, right? And so we have a list of all of the companies that are preferred at Zoosurance. As we add more companies and the companies change, this will probably change. So just pay attention to it. Check this whenever you go through it because it may be different from when I'm filming this. So again, we're optimizing for day one first. Then we're optimizing for price swings that are more than $7. And then we're going to go for preferred company. So I'll show you guys how this whole thing works so you guys can like understand this. So day one options, right? What does this mean? So we're always going to prioritize a day one insurance company over anything. This basically just means the plan is not going to be graded or guaranteed issue. So there's no waiting period. Once they pay their first premium, that's when the plan starts. That's what day one is. This is always our goal, right? We always want to find the client a company that starts from day one. And I will always pick a day one option for my client, even if it's more expensive. And the reason why is because we're playing a game of risk. And so if I get my client something that takes 2 years to kick in and they, it happens all the time. They pass away within the first 2 years. Their family doesn't get paid the full amount. They just get what they put into it plus a percent. So I'm always going for day one, even if it's, a few dollars more expensive, day one, over a 2-year waiting period. So how do I know if something's day one or not? It's very simple. Inside of toolkits, there's a little I, right? This like little thing that says like I for information. This is going to be either graded or guaranteed issue. If it does not have an I, that means that it starts from day one. It's literally that simple. So for example, I'll show you guys here, Day one companies would be the ones that do not have an I on them. So for example, SBLI, this plan with no I is day one. If there is an I, that means it's graded or guaranteed issue. Corebridge is going to be almost always guaranteed issue. But the thing you guys need to know is like, it's not like Mutual of Omaha is a day one company. They have day one plans and they have graded plans and 2-year waiting period plans. So Transamerica has day one options and they have graded options. They all have like different plans. So I could see SBLI graded and it has an I next to it, or I could see SBLI day one. So it's not like all the companies are either graded or day one. They all have different plans, which is why you need to look out for the I. I can't just go in here and say, oh, Royal Neighbors is a day one option, so therefore, if I see Royal Neighbors, it's day one. Nope, it's the I. That's why we reference that here. So if you see the I, graded, guaranteed issue, no I, that means it's day one. And what are we optimizing for above all else? Day one. Perfect. So the next thing is price. So the next thing that we're going to look at is basically to prioritize finding the clients the best rate possible, right? But the thing is, we only care about price if there's more than a $7 difference between the carriers. If there's more than a $7 difference, we go for price. If it's less, I do not care, right? And most of the time, the client doesn't care either. The only exception to that rule is if they're like on a super tight budget and something as small as like $5 per month could be the difference between you getting the deal or not and them being able to afford the insurance. So that's like the only instance where we make an exception to this rule. Other than that, like I don't care if it's a $7 swing, right? Because let's say, let's look at an example, right? So let's say Transamerica is $60.30 a month and SBLI is $73.37 a month, right? In this instance, I'm choosing Transamerica because it is the cheaper option by over $7, right? It's $13 cheaper, which means I'm going to pick the one with the cheaper price. Pretty simple, right? The price, this is not too hard to notice. If there's more than a $7 difference and it's day one, you're going to go with that option, right? Now, what if the price, there's not more than a $7 difference and it's close? It's under $7. Then we're going to go to our third priority, which is preferred carriers. So basically, we've made a list of the easiest companies to work with. These are basically ranked from best to least. So you want to prioritize the carriers that are at the top of this list whenever you're underwriting, right? So the whole reason we designed this is like this is a very simple system. You don't have to think about it. If you just follow this tiered priority list, you'll always pick the right company for the client, no matter what, right? So preferred carriers. I'm not going to go through all of these different things. These are just like nice things to know about each carrier, benefits or downsides to each one. The top of the list, we have SBLI. This is always our go-to if it's close. Then we have Mutual of Omaha, Royal Neighbors, American Amicable, Transamerica, AIG, and Great Western. At the time of filming this, we have 7 carriers. When you're watching this, we may have more, we may have less, who knows? So let's look at an example and see how we would actually use this whole system in action. So let's say we put in the health questions and this pops up. So we have up here at the top, right? We have Transamerica for 5105. We have SBLI for 5105. We have Mutual of Omaha for 5122. American Amicable for 5431. Royal Neighbors for 5705, right? So what most people would do and what most people assume is they just go off of the cheapest option to the most expensive option. So they're just going to go, okay, Transamerica is the cheapest. I'm going to try this one first. So they'll go Transamerica 1, SBLI 2, Mutual of Omaha 3, American Amicable 4, Royal Neighbors 5, right? Because we have the system, we're actually going to approach it a little bit differently. So let's kind of look at it. So what's going to be priority number 1? That's going to be SBLI. Now, why is SBLI going to be our first priority whenever we're picking carriers here? Well, if you guys look here, the price, 51, I apologize if you guys can't see this. I'll just tell you what it is. SBLI says 5105. Transamerica says 5105. So they're literally the exact same price, right? They're both day one. I don't see any I's over here. No I's. So they're both day one. They're the same price. if we look at our list, SBLI is number 1 on our list, right? SBLI is the preferred carrier every single time. Meaning SBLI is going to be our number 1 choice here, which is why SBLI is number 1. Now, why is Mutual of Omaha number 2 and not Transamerica? Well, the reason why is it's not more than $7 difference. It's like 17-cent difference. So this is 5105 and Mutual of Omaha is 5122. Mutual of Omaha is the carrier number 2 on our preferred carriers list. As you can see, I don't know why this is so difficult to scroll. What the hell? I have to refresh this page for you guys. Hold up. All right, so Mutual of Omaha is number 2 on a preferred carrier list, and the price is not more than $7, so Mutual of Omaha is going to be number 2. Now, Transamerica has to be up next, right? Nope. Next is Royal Neighbors because it's priority number 3. Everything's day 1, and the price is within $7, right? I can see here Royal Neighbors 57, Transamerica 51. It's only a $6.04 difference. I'm going to go Royal Neighbors before I go Transamerica here. And so why am I listing these out in order? Because let's say, for example, they got declined SBLI or they couldn't do SBLI or whatever. Then I would go to Mutual of Omaha. Then I would go to Royal Neighbors. Then I would go to American Amicable. And then I would go to Transamerica, right? So Royal Neighbors is priority number 3 because it's day 1. It's within $7 of Transamerica. And it's actually our 3rd company on the preferred carrier list, right? So I'm just going down this list. It's very simple. There's no thought to it. There's nothing that goes into it. I'm literally just going down the list and finding what the next best option is if they're all within $7, right? And then last but not least, American Amicable. This one is $54.31, so it's still within $7. This is the next up one after Royal Neighbors on the preferred carrier list. So I would go SBLI, Mutual, Royal Neighbors, American Amicable, and then Transamerica last case resort. So you guys are saying like, Tim, why do you hate Transamerica so much? And it's not that I hate them. It's just that they're a company that comes with a lot of baggage. And when I say that, I mean like they tend to be more of a headache to deal with. So they're not going to give you an instant approval whenever you fill out the application. You're going to have to wait a few days to hear back, which means you then have to call your client back to get them back on the phone to tell them if they got approved or denied. And if they get denied, now you've had to wait a few days before you can get them back on the phone to pivot to a different option. Not to mention, they just drown you in administrative work like paperwork and just random BS. So they end up, like, if you write a bunch of Transamerica, it's just going to end up bogging you down and costing you more time. So that's why I put that at number 5. Most of these other ones will tell you immediately if the client is approved or not. And SBLI will actually tell you while you're inside of the application most of the time. So let us look at a different example. So I'm trying to zoom in more. One sec. All right. So now what do we have here? We have Royal Neighbors, number 1. How can I zoom in a little more? There we go. There we go. Perfect. So we got Royal Neighbors number 1 here, and then Transamerica number 2, SBLI 3, Mutual of Omaha 4, and Great Western 5. So how did we go from this to this? Well, let's kind of look at this. This is an entirely different client, so all the health is different. But why are we going in this order now, and why is Transamerica? Like, why? How can we have Transamerica as 2 if here I was like, this is going to be 5? So let's look at it. Let's just apply the rules. It's just that simple. So Royal Neighbors is priority number 1 because, hey, there's no I, and it's the lowest price company. So this is 57. Transamerica is 60. SBLI is 73. Mutual is 63. And Great Western is 74. So of all of these, which one is day 1? So these 3 are day 1. These 2 on the bottom have I's. So these 3 are day 1, right? What's the cheapest? Well, Royal Neighbors is the cheapest. And then we have Transamerica, and then we have SBLI. Is it within $7 of each other? No, it's actually like $16 more expensive. SBLI is like $16 more expensive than Royal Neighbors here. So in this case, we're going to pick Royal Neighbors number one. So we've got Royal Neighbors as number one. It's the priority number one. And because it's day one and a lower price company, that's why it's number one. So let's look at Transamerica. So Transamerica is also day one. So we're basically picking between two companies now. These are the only two day one that are left because we already have Royal Neighbors as number one. So Transamerica is going to be priority number two because it's day one. And even though it's at the bottom of our preferred list, right? It's 5 out of 7. It's $13 cheaper than SBLI. So it's not within $7. So we're going to have to default the price. $13 more expensive SBLI is than Transamerica. So now we got SBLI. This is going to be priority number 3 because it's day one over these other 3 options. So you guys are saying like, hey, well, I thought you just went with Transamerica over SBLI because it was more expensive. But SBLI is more expensive than Mutual of Omaha. Yes, it is. But look here. There is an I with Mutual of Omaha, meaning that this is going to take 2 years to kick in. So again, you have to use these rules. You have to use the 3-tiered priority list. Day one is always the priority. And then price, if it's more than $7, if it's within $7, we're going to default to preferred carriers, right? So that's how I'm figuring this out. And then next up, we have Mutual because it's not day one. And even though it's cheaper than SBLI, it's not day one, so SBLI takes priority over Mutual. And then Great Western is last because it's the most expensive and it's day two. And those are 2 examples that should give you guys like a better idea of how this whole system works. You guys will see this in action when we do mock underwritings, which I'll add to the rest of this training for you guys to watch through, just to get an idea, because you'll see this over and over and over. You guys will get practice using the system, and then as we add more underwriting trainings, you guys can watch those to kind of improve your skill set and get prepared for all that. So next thing we're going to talk about is the toolkits legend. This is basically kind of like a map legend, just so you guys know what each of the different things mean. So the question marks in toolkits, this is basically just like why they're coming back with a different rate class. So for example, if it's going to be like standard is usually lower than preferred. So like, why are they offering us standard and not preferred? Well, the reason why is because if a heart attack was within the last 2 to 10 years, it's going to be standard, right? Why is American Amicable coming back graded instead of day one? Well, the reason why is because if there's a heart attack between 2 and 3 years, it's going to come back graded. So the question mark, this is just going to tell you like if they're offering a rate class other than their cheapest one and their best option, it's just going to tell you why if you hover over it. It's that simple. This usually doesn't matter too much, but it can be helpful if you're trying to figure out like why someone's getting declined for other companies. So the red dots, these are basically warnings about the carrier or the plan. So if you hover over the red dot, it's just going to give you more information. So for example, if I look at Mutual always has a red dot because of this. It's just saying like whenever they sign the app, they need to be near their home address because they use like IP and all the like tracking their IP address. And then Transamerica, they just talk about like comorbidity scores, which I'm not going to get into. But basically the red dot is just kind of like a warning. It's usually like, it's not an issue, but it's just helpful pieces of information to keep in mind, the red dots, right? So what is the yellow star? This means true Social Security billing. So all of the companies with yellow stars, they're going to bill on the exact dates that people are drafted or that people get their Social Security check. So you might be saying like, that's cool, but like, why couldn't I just put it on the 1st or the 3rd? Like, why is true Social Security billing, like actually, why does that matter? Well, let me show you guys. So I've attached here, this is the Social Security benefit payment schedule for 2024. Maybe you're watching this in a later year. If so, great. But this is when I'm filming, this is 2024. So basically, if we look at this, I'm not going to go through this whole code, but essentially these little like outline blue boxes, this is people that are getting paid on the 1st or the 3rd. So if I look here, the 3rd, if I get paid on the 3rd, January 2024, the 3rd fell on a Wednesday. So the Social Security is only going to pay during weekdays and not during holidays. So if it is a weekend or a holiday on the 3rd or the 1st, it's going to fall on a different day. So for example, the 3rd in February fell on a Saturday, meaning they're not going to get paid on the 3rd, they're going to get paid on the 2nd. And so if the insurance company then drafts on the 3rd or drafts on the 5th, it's going to come out a different day than with the day that they get paid, right? Same thing in March, right? The 3rd was on a Sunday, so they drafted it on the 1st. So if they got paid on the 3rd, they get paid on the 1st in March. So it's off, right? Or we could look at I'm trying to see another example. It looks like for the rest of the year, or here we go, in November too. In November, the 3rd is on a Sunday, so they're going to pay them on the 1st. So basically what true Social Security billing is it makes sure that it always drafts the date that it gets paid to the person. So it aligns with this billing schedule instead of just drafting it on the 3rd every time, because sometimes the 3rd is on a federal holiday or the 3rd is on a Saturday or Sunday. That's essentially what true Social Security billing is. You guys can also reference this, and Social Security releases a new one every year, so you can kind of look at this and keep it up to date. So that's basically just what this little gold star means. It's very simple. So the I's, what are the I's, right? We've already kind of talked about this a little bit. When I see an I, what does that mean? So an I basically just indicates that the plan is either guaranteed issue or graded. So if I see an I, it's always going to be either guaranteed issue or graded. It's not going to be day one. And the cool thing is, if you hover over this, it'll tell you how the plan works. So this is telling me, hey, in year 1, if they die, they're going to get 30% of the overall face amount. In year 2, they'll get 70%. In year 3, they'll get 100%. So this is not technically it's not a 2-year waiting period. It's graded. Whereas this, in years 1 to 2, they get return of premium or everything they put into it plus 10%. And then years 3 onward, they get 100% of the face amount, right? So the I just tells you if it's graded or guaranteed issue. The last thing is the dollar signs. So the dollar signs basically mean commission cuts. So if I see a dollar sign on here, that means that my commission is going to be lowered on that particular company, right? So to be honest with you guys, these aren't accurate because our commission plan differs. But this is just if it's return of premium or graded, usually it's going to be a lower commission. So that's just indicating that. And yeah, that's everything you guys need to know. That's everything on toolkits. And then those are all of our frameworks as well. So just to recap, main things, you're playing a game of Clue. You need to be a detective. Don't be don't interrogate these people, but we need to dig deeper on questions to get the facts, and we don't want to speculate, right? So some things to look out for. Look over this doc. I'm going to include it below this training. We're going through a process of elimination, so we're basically trying to knock out specific carriers. We're not trying to figure out what they qualify for. We're trying to knock out everything they don't qualify for, and then we're going to use the 3-tiered priority list to pick from what's left as far as what's going to be the best option for them, right? And toolkits, again, question marks indicate why the company is offering a specific plan. Red dots are warnings. Yellow stars are true Social Security billing. And I's are guaranteed issue or graded. If it doesn't have an I, it's day one. If it has an I, it's guaranteed issue or graded. Dollar signs are commission cuts. Ladies and gentlemen, that is everything that I'm going to be covering in the underwriting frameworks training. If you guys have questions about underwriting, because it is a constantly changing thing, constantly evolving, please hit us up. We're happy to help, especially if you have someone on the line or in the middle of a deal. But the main thing is, if you master these frameworks, the knowledge will fill in over time just from doing this. So don't stress out if you don't know every medication and every health condition or anything like that. We don't expect you to. Nobody does. It just takes time to learn. So hopefully you guys got some value from this. If you did, please let me know, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.